Getting medical service in a country you did not grow up in, they thought God would heal his foot. He said it was his dream to chase his kids around the park like other papas do. The bone infection nearly killed him. Okay, folks, here is where I put my script away and I tell you our heartfelt story. My husband is handicapped, but he is not handicapped enough. He is not eligible for one of those handicap permits you put on your dashboard. Why? A little backstory. So, my husband was born with a club foot on his right side. His parents were Christian Scientists, and they thought God would heal his congenital defect, his foot. But guess what? God didn't. By the time my husband was 7 years old, his parents were no longer Christian Scientists. And they were getting some feedback from the outside world that maybe, just maybe, they could get their son corrective surgery. So the foot got operated on and fixed. His whole life, he could walk, but running and playing other sports like football, not that he would play football, but if he wanted to play football, that was out of the question. Just basic walking was in the books for him. No running, no playing sports. As he grew older, and especially when we moved to Germany where there's uneven ground like cobblestones, his ankles started to give out and give him problems. When our kids were very young, he was unable to walk across a sandbox to play with them. He said it was his dream to chase his kids around the park like other papas do. The orthopedic hospital down the street took a look and they recommended corrective surgery even at his age, which was like mid-40s. Getting medical service in a country where you did not grow up in is an added layer to this whole expat experience. You deepen your knowledge of how things are run and how well things match up to what you have known about medical practices. So he got a surgery, he got corrective surgery, and then he got a cast. That cast was too tight, and we knew it was too tight because he would wake up in the middle of the night and scream like a little girl. It was the severe nerve pain, and he had breakthrough pain. Of course, he had pain medication, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. So we went back after a couple of days. I think it was like the weekend. He got a cast on a Friday. I recommend do not get anything major on a Friday if weekend appointments aren't an option. And on Monday, they adjusted his cast. They loosened it up a little, I believe, but it was still too tight. He was still waking up in the middle of the night screaming. Honestly, looking back, I think his cast was put on too early because when you get a surgery like that, you have to wait for all of the swelling to go down before you compress it. What they ended up doing was giving him a whole new cast with a slit at the back so that you could open it or close it and actually take it off. So it was a lot more flexible. So finally that cast came off and he looked at his heel and there was a tiny black spot. He took a picture of it. I couldn't go in with him at the time because this was during the COVID pandemic. And I wish I was able to go in with him because when I was a nurse working at a wound care center, anytime somebody came in with necrotic tissue, we would debride it, which means you take like a little scalpel and you scrape away the dead tissue. Of course, there's like numbing medication you give patients, but that definitely needs to go away so that you incorporate all these healing factors and it heals. There's a lot of puns. He went to his weekly appointments over a span of about 2.5, 3 months. And every time he went to the appointment, he would come back to the car where I was parked and he would report that they told him to wait for the next week, that it would heal on its own. And he described these doctors that took care of him. They were very young, probably between 20 and 25. They weren't doctors. They were actually doctors in training, and we called them baby docs. So we knew that it was important that he see a main head doctor and get their professional opinion. Hey, let's get wound care here because every hospital unit dealing with surgery has a wound care unit. So finally, it seemed like after a long time, he got a professional opinion from the wound care team, and they too, I believe, said it was normal and that it actually would heal on its own and to wait. One day, he texted me while I was waiting in the car and he said, I'm being transferred. The head doctor, when he saw the black on his heel, which by the way went from a tiny black dot to encompassing his entire his entire heel was black. And he looked at his heel and he said, this must come off. And they immediately sent him to a clinic an hour away. So the day before his birthday, he went to this clinic to have it removed. What that removal involved was taking a piece of his thigh and transferring it to his heel. Maybe I'll do a small interview with him because he has a story of waking up from that surgery and seeing his thigh skin on his heel. That transplant was the beginning of a harrowing, horrific 3-year journey in and out of clinics because it involved, in the end, a bone infection. The bone infection nearly killed him. We were moments away from amputation. He joined an amputation group, like a support group, which pretty much scared him out of wanting to get an amputation. It just would not heal, even with the most strongest medication. I remember taking a prescription of this antibiotic and handing it to the pharmacist. And the lady looked at the medication and she put her glasses on and she was like, okay, this medication normally is extremely expensive. I think it was in the thousands of euros or dollars or whatever currency you want to add. It was in that range. Of course, we got it for free. She said it was only used in severe, dire cases. So we thought, of course, this antibiotic will work because it seems so powerful and it's so expensive. Guess what? It ended up not working. We were, again, moments away from facing amputation, imagining life with a prosthetic. Maybe it would have been an okay life, but it's definitely a lifestyle when you have a prosthetic. What ended up happening is he got a part of his calcaneus bone removed. And that in itself is like a mini amputation anyway, because you don't have your heel bone. And because he was missing part of his heel bone, he needed orthopedic shoes. Getting orthopedic shoes made in Germany, like everything else, is a long, drawn out, bureaucratic process. It took forever, months, for him to get his orthopedic shoes made. In the meantime, he refused to use a wheelchair. So he was either bedridden, which has its own side problems, or he used this scooter to get around. And he had one for going around the apartment and he had one for going shopping. It really embarrassed the kids, him using the SME scooter. Well, not the kids, I would say the older one. She was really embarrassed by her papa for a long time. So as you could see, like this had a lot of family implications in it too. However, I must say we are super, super thankful to live in a country where an overnight stay in a hospital at that length of time is at the cost of like a premium cup of coffee in California. But hot damn, the processes are slow. Okay, so he got his corrective custom shoes. The next step, did I say step, was to apply for his disability permit. We discovered that in Germany, your level of disability is placed on a graded scale from 10 to 100. And depending on the severity of your condition, you will be placed along that scale. Scenario: you are in a wheelchair. This means you are over 80% handicapped. You can't walk. Therefore, you get priority with parking spaces. It makes sense. Scenario: you can walk, but sometimes it is very painful because your ankle bones are extremely sensitive and worn and torn down by years and years since you were a baby, even with orthopedic shoes. And on top of that, you have a skin flap on your ankle. And on top of that, you have a part of your bone missing. So yes, you can walk, but you could walk slowly and it's painful. You are 50% handicapped. However, in Germany, in order to receive one of those handicap permits you put on your dashboard, you must be over 80% handicapped. The moral of the story is, don't be a Christian Scientist. I'm curious, do you think the disability percentage system is fair? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments. I always love hearing from you guys. See you next time.